there's a number of different religious people, religions represented here tonight. And I get the sense that there's a lot of disagreement about what the First Amendment truly says. It promises the freedom of religion, not the freedom from religion. And there is a clear distinction. Freedom from religion means that you can disavow someone else's beliefs and disagree with them, and suddenly you throw it out the door. But there are certain beliefs held very strongly by certain religions that create issues with this ordinance. In fact, the ordinance states, nothing in this chapter shall be construed to approve of or make it lawful to discriminate against individuals, okay, on the basis of religion. Now, I know the ordinance does exclude religious organizations. However, at this meeting, you'll hear, I'm sure, and at the last meeting, you heard a number of citizens who stood up and testified that this ordinance would create situations where they would be forced to act contrary to their personal beliefs. The ordinance is contradictory because you can't pass the ordinance and pretend to protect religious freedoms of certain groups at the same time unless you discount their testimony because you somehow understand their religious beliefs better than they do. The prevention of any free practice of any well-documented religious belief demonstrates a deliberate willingness by the council to discriminate against those rights of individual citizens, and that should bother everybody in this council room and in the room tonight. Second, as you know, I've lived here a long time. This is a great community. There's a lot of good people. The city attorney testified to the fact that there has been no documented instances of discrimination against any LGBTQ community members in the city. And it's sad to hear the testimony of people who have had issues. And I do get the sense, unfortunately, that a number of those who testify in favor of this ordinance operate under the belief that people who oppose it intrinsically harbor bias and hatred toward them, and that is not the case. It is simply not the case. You cannot legislate respect or acceptance. I was a meteorologist for 42 years. I got no respect ever. I wish you could trust me on that. So disagreement with another view, of someone else's view, doesn't constitute evidence of prejudice or discrimination. Finally, with regard to the bathroom situation, I want to point out that this does provide a tool which sexual predators posing as transsexual individuals could utilize to gain access to women's restrooms, showers, and locker rooms. In fact, if you have an ordinance that allows this sort of thing, it increases the risk and likelihood of sexual assault because it creates an opportunity for such acts to occur. In other words, it would facilitate the commission of a crime. Now, the ordinance does state nothing can prohibit an employer or public accommodation from posting signs for restrooms and dressing rooms based on gender. Okay, but the wording in the ordinance also officially blurs the line between identification of gender. So posting a sign is nice, but restricting access to public facilities becomes a little more difficult since the term gender is now defined as perceived gender and not based on clear evidence of one's identity. Plus, and we're not talking about the LGBTQ community. They would not be at fault in here, but a sexual predator doesn't care about what sign is posted. I understand it's OSHA, I understand it, but the ordinance creates the opportunity for this thing to happen. And also it places a greater burden on establishments to monitor access to public restrooms, and in my estimation puts the city at risk of being a defendant in litigation because passage of this would deliberately overlook the risks that would come with passage of this ordinance, and the cost would be inestimable. Now, we all, as many people have pointed out, enjoy equal rights and protections under the law. Hate crime legislation already exists that prescribes stiffer penalties for persons convicted of such acts. Unfortunately, this ordinance really does nothing other than jeopardize the apparent harmony in this city It twists logic like a pretzel. It will force some individuals to act contrary to their religious beliefs and increase the probability of provoking animosity and mistrust toward the group it's designed to protect. Unintended consequences rarely reveal themselves right away, but they always emerge. And I urge you to not pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.